You are listening to the Billy Dees podcast. We are waiting just a minute for everyone to engage the live stream. Remember, you can find the Billy Dees podcast on your favorite platform.
All right. Well, hello, X, and all of the platforms. We're going to begin the podcast here in just a moment. If you're new here, we stream live on social media, and during that process in the background, I record the audio separately, and that's the podcast that you hear on all the different platforms. With me for this is Shamanisis. Shaman, how are you?
I'm fantastic, Billy. I'm in a great mood and looking forward to some of the topics we're going to be discussing.
Absolutely. It's always great to have you. We always wait just a moment, like I said, for the streams to lock on. I want to welcome some new people to Facebook. Obviously, our primary social media platform is X. That's why it says live on X. That's where we get the vast majority of the views and listens as far as social media goes. And then, of course, the platforms themselves and the replays are where the real listens are. But we're real happy to have an audience on X. We've incorporated Facebook now, which is a new thing. So I want to welcome the Facebook people. I have a small Facebook group, but it's very loyal and they're very active. So we've put that in as well. All right. Well, without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and start the podcast. A lot to talk about this evening. Welcome, and in just a moment. All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the program. As always, I am absolutely thrilled that you are here. If you've never checked us out before, we are primarily an interview and a commentary-based podcast. You can find the Billy Dees podcast anywhere podcasts are found. We're on all the major platforms. We go live, and we have a commentary / discussion program for you on Thursday nights. With me for that is Shamanisis. Shaman, how are you?
I'm amazing, Billy. Thanks for asking. Looking forward to our episode.
You are amazing. Absolutely. 100% you are amazing. We're going to talk about a couple different things. We're going to touch on social media just a little bit. I got to talk a little bit about LinkedIn. And we're going to talk about media. Shaman, I'm going to bring in Shaman for that. We're going to talk about some things that happen that we kind of wonder if aren't manipulation as much as they are a faux pas and wrong things said. We're also going to talk about the presidential election, and the big news is the debates. So all that's coming up. I do want to touch a little bit on LinkedIn because I've been getting some interesting comments about LinkedIn. Okay. If you're not a social media person, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. We have been also streaming to LinkedIn, and part of me says this is a waste because, quite frankly, the LinkedIn people are very stiff.
Conservative? Yeah, they're very conservative.
Very stiff. You know, if I said to somebody on LinkedIn, hey, you want to get laid this weekend? Does that sound like a good idea? The answer would be, well, what's my ROI? I don't know this getting laid thing. If you can't tell me what my ROI is, I'm not going to do it.
I do think that in their defense, really quick, I think it's because they really understand their customer and they're trying really hard to stay in their niche, which makes sense.
Yeah, I guess. But I got to tell you, you know, people on LinkedIn are like, do you know LinkedIn does video now? Wow, really?
Yeah,
revelation
does a little bit of everything.
Yeah. So anyway, part of me has said maybe this show is a little too rich for
because we drop F-bombs, which is very anti-LinkedIn. They're not into cussing or sex talk or anything like that.
Yeah, and it's not like if you're hearing this show for the first time, it's not like we're loaded with profanity and we talk about sex, but in the course of conversation, sometimes things are said uncensored. So anyway, I gotta say though, I do think that LinkedIn is a good place because media awareness is starting to climb now, even on LinkedIn, if you can imagine that. And people are much more in tune now to the fact that marketing and business is very much tied into how politics works.
Mm-hmm.
And we are not a partisan show. It's not like we trash the quote unquote the other party. We talk about what's working and what isn't on behalf of both parties and the independents as well. We're going to talk about that a little bit too. So
Which
anyway,
I
I
think
just
is
want to,
actually really great, Billy, because nobody does that. They're all taking a position instead of trying to
yeah,
talk about the truth and the facts and look at it from an unbiased point of view.
yeah. I went to, and I want to be very clear here. I went to a little social gathering the other night, and to talk about how polarizing these topics can be. And anyway, welcome if you're watching this on LinkedIn, both of you, welcome. And um, I hope you enjoy this. But anyway, I speaking about the partisanship and the polarization of anything. You just mentioned the word politics, even in a way that where you're discussing marketing. It gets people pissed. So anyway, I was at a social gathering, and I want to be very clear here. The negativity that I got came from somebody that I absolutely love. This is a wonderful, wonderful business person. I absolutely love this person. I was not upset, but I just thought the way she delivered this line was so flat and so serious and just matter of fact. It just cracked me up. So I was out at this social gathering, and don't ask me why. This I used to do stand up years ago. The stand up guy started coming at me a little bit, and I started doing some bits about Joe Biden, and they were all in fun. And just about everybody at this gathering was laughing except for two. And
Always the telltale sign.
yeah, there's always the telltale sign, and one was actually getting a little stiff backed, if you know what I mean. She was, he's getting a little stiff in the chair there. And I was, doing the typical Biden stuff about cannibals and all that bullshit. And
You mean speaking the truth?
yeah, that's the thing. I kept saying, I said, you don't have to be a comedy writer to write about Trump and Biden. I mean, they're a comedy show in and of and by themselves. All you have to do is repeat what they said. So anyway, she very very stiff, and I wanted to make sure everything was okay. So before I left, I went over to the chair and I said, "Hey, by the way, I hope that there was nothing that I said that offended you. I was just trying to be entertaining." And she goes, "Oh, don't worry about that, Billy. It takes a lot more than that to offend me." And I said, "Well, if you want to get really offended, why don't you listen to the podcast?" And this line. The next thing she said just absolutely was wonderful. I just absolutely loved it. She said, "Oh, I do, and it's not for long."
Oh. We're equal opportunity offenders. Apparently, we offend everybody who's set in their ways.
Yeah, I just said, well, if you really want to be offended, yeah, go ahead and listen to my podcast. And she goes, "Oh, I do, and it's never for long." So anyway, I thought that was absolutely hysterical. I laughed about that all day long the next day. It was charming in its own way.
Yeah.
It was charming. It was honest. It was straightforward. And like I said, I just absolutely love this person. There may be people listening to this that know about the incident, so I want to be very clear. I love this person, and I loved that remark. And actually, that's the thing. I actually like. I don't want to say rattling people's cage, but I like, making points and getting involved in, as long as it's respectful, you're not calling each other names and all that. But I really like that kind of banter. And I think you're kind of like that too, right?
Oh,
You kind
yeah,
of,
very
yeah,
much so. And one of the things that I find sort of sad about the modern years that we've been having, and that's why it's been about 10 years, the woke culture and the political conversation became so polarizing and so anti-debate and it was like people were no longer allowed to have a conversation about anything. And I'm regularly offending people without meaning to
uh,
by just stating facts. And I find that even whether it's Republicans or Democrats, I really piss people off by stating very factual things. Like Democrats are delusional in their inability to acknowledge that there's something
yeah,
seriously wrong with what's going on right now with the president in terms of, presence and abilities. But, Republicans have
absolutely.
their issues that they're delusional about. So,
They most certainly do. But I will say I've run into a number of people now who just Oh, you're not even acknowledging the wonderful things that Biden has done. He's going to do another great job in the next 4 years. I want to be
Whose
very
hand up is going to be up his backside?
here. Yeah, honestly, I heard this analogy the other day, and it is very true. If you needed a ride, if you needed to get in a car and get a ride home from someone, would you want Joe Biden driving that car? And you can't honestly tell me, yes, I that would be great. So the answer then the next conclusion is how can he run the country?
Yeah,
How can he run
he's
if you don't
not.
trust him to give you a ride home? How can he run the country? And here again, this isn't being mean. I really feel for him. If he was my father or my grandfather, I would tell him it's time to sit out. It's time to enjoy the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So anyway,
And I think that points out one of the biggest issues that we have with our biggest challenges is that we've gotten to this place where people are incapable of having rational conversation about
yeah,
things that are quite factual because they're so
absolutely.
afraid that it's giving up an inch of the square they're standing on, and it's like,
Absolutely.
well,
That's exactly right.
you know,
Yeah.
we have to be able to acknowledge what we're really facing for us to be able to create successful ways in which to deal with issues. And it's really difficult to do that if we can't even have conversations about things that are blatantly obvious to
Yeah.
anyone with two eyes. Like it's
It's very
it's really
similar. I'm going to
silly.
use the word psychosis here. It's almost the same psychosis for people who are just so lost in religion. That
Mhm.
people are just so lost in these ideologies now that no matter what you show them, it means nothing.
Oh yeah,
They
yeah,
will not give an inch
yeah.
in terms of what they believe their reality to be.
Yeah,
And
I've had
actually,
this conversation a lot about TikTok and what's going on with the money that's being moved around by our politicians who are pressing this whole issue, and
sure,
I can't get people who voted for those politicians to have a conversation when I say, "Look, the guy who pushed that bill through spent $750,000," which, I didn't know our politicians had that kind of money. It's amazing how you can
yeah,
become a
they make
politician and somehow
150 or so a year. Yeah,
make millions and be like Nancy Pelosi and be worth, like, tens of millions of dollars and have the best
yeah,
portfolio around. And I'll say, he spent in the 2 weeks leading up to the banning of TikTok or the supposed banning of TikTok, he spent $750,000 of his own money in his wife and daughter's name, and they literally will not respond. And when I say, "Don't you find that disturbing?" And they're like,
yeah,
Well, if it's true."
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Alright.
It's a scary time that we're in. That people are so emboldened by their beliefs that they will not acknowledge even the slightest bit of reality. And getting back to reality, whether you like it or not. Here again, Trump is not the same guy he was in 2016 either.
Yeah,
Okay,
no.
but he has hit the rate of decline with Biden has been much worse. And quite frankly, sometimes it's not really associated directly with age. I've known people in their 50s and 60s that have
Yeah.
started to slip. So, it just depends on the person. And Bernie Sanders, for example, is a perfect example. I don't agree with a lot of his politics, but he's sharp as a pin. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
you just don't know. Getting back to the polling, and we've talked about the polling before. Sometimes it's accurate, sometimes it isn't. It can be a good gauge, but the only
Everything's
poll that
all
really
made up.
matters is the only polling that really matters is the election, right? So, okay.
Yeah.
I'm from Canton, Ohio, as I mentioned before, Pro Football Hall of Fame. I ran across this clip. I'm going to play Lawrence Taylor. And if you don't know who he's often referred to as LT, just an absolute beast on defense. I believe he went into the Hall of Fame like 20 years ago. It was like 1999 or something like that. But here he is.
I just want to say I grew up a Democrat. And I've always been a Democrat until I met this man right here. I'll tell you what. He will not have to worry about nobody in my family ever vote for a Democrat again. Okay.
That's Lawrence Taylor right there. And the reason I played that clip is because there's a lot of that happening. There's
Oh,
the
yeah.
shift, according to the polling and the studies that have been going on here. There's been a big shift from people that were normally Democrats, no matter who, are now shifting towards Trump.
Yeah.
And this young people,
Oh,
young
yeah,
men in
particularly young
particular.
men. Yeah. Mhm.
So that's interesting. That's kind of a new thing. And I also James Carville. I've always found James Carville very funny.
Yeah, he is. He's intelligent and witty.
Yeah, he's funny and witty. The thing that he said that kind of stands out. I remember that after the Clinton Bush senior election, he was asked about how did you pull this off? Clinton was so far behind. What did the Republicans do that was wrong? And his answer was, I can't really imitate him that well, but he said something like, well, you sit on an egg and it hatches. You sit on a lead and it rots. That's what he said.
He's
Sit on a
funny.
lead and it rots. Great line. He's been online expressing his dismay as to why the Democrats are not doing better in the polling
Yeah.
and all. And
It's bad, by the way, when all these political pundits as well as media are starting to speak the truth about what we've known
oh,
all year, that Trump was much stronger than what people were saying. The media was
yeah.
delusional, and it's pretending that he was never going to be in the race.
Yeah. And I
So
was one of them a year ago. If you'd asked me, I said, well, he's going to get the nomination, but there's no way he's going to fly in the general election. Boy, has that changed. Anyway, here's James Carville. And by the way, as you're watching this, I'll tell you what the answer is. The reason that the Democrats are in the position that they are is because they don't have a candidate. And this is what I've been saying. If here again on the other side of the fence, if I was advising the Democrats right now as a marketing person, I just said right after the 2020 election, get yourself a candidate, start molding somebody, start prepping the part. You need another Clinton, you need another Obama. Okay. And instead, you got a pause. And we're going to come back to that clip too. But anyway, here's James Carville expressing his dismay at what is happening right now with the Democrats.
In Trump's more ahead than he's ever been. Fewer people think January 6th was any kind of what it was, as an assault on the temple of democracy, the Constitution. I don't know whatever the fuck you want to say. It's going the wrong way. It's not working. Everything that we're throwing is spaghetti at a wall, and none of it is sticking, me included. And it's hard when you start in your 80th year, and you like anybody else, I have an opinion of myself, and the opinion I've come to is I don't matter. It doesn't matter. You can prepare. You can be on TV. Or you can write pieces. You can have a YouTube channel. You can have a podcast. And nothing. And we gotta try to think of something different, because what we're doing is really, really not working.
Yeah, what you're doing is you don't have a candidate. What don't they understand? They're throwing stuff at the wall at Trump, trying to get something to stick, his words.
yeah. Which was a huge mistake on their part, because they overdid it, and it really did give him the platform in which to be seen as the person who was the biggest threat to the way that things are. And the way that things are is not good for the average American. The average American is pissed and fearful, and with good reason, because the economy is so bad simply because corporate America has really, I'm so tired of hearing people mention inflation. Inflation is made up. It is invented. They switch out numbers they don't like for numbers that they do like. And that inflation line has been covering up the shocking corporate greed, which is crushing the middle class and causing Americans to turn to Donald Trump. And that's the fault of the Democratic Party at this point, because they really have just continued to look the other way.
Yeah. And I got to tell you this here again, it's so obvious. When you base your campaign on our guy isn't as bad as yours, It's
Mhm.
not a campaign.
No, it's not. And,
And
I just wanna say one thing really quick. I do believe the Republicans are equally responsible for allowing
absolutely.
politicians to get paid off and for, special interests and for the economy as well, but the Democrats' inability to acknowledge that Bidenomics were not working has really made it all worse. The
Yeah.
lies they've been telling everybody, "Everything's fine," for 2 years now. It's like, "No, everything is not fine."
Yeah. I let me go here. Let's talk about this upcoming debate. And if you're not familiar with this, this is kind of unusual. President Joe Biden and the former President Donald Trump have agreed so far on 2 debates. The first one will be on June 27th, which is actually about a little over a month away. And it's going to be hosted by CNN. And somebody had a great line because one of the conditions that Joe Biden wants is no audience. And somebody said, well, if you don't want anybody watching, CNN is the place to be.
Yeah.
And the second one, which will be later in the fall, actually September 10th, I suppose technically that's still summer, but usually after Labor Day, we say it's fall. That one is going to be, I'm pretty sure that's going to be after Labor Day. The second one on September 10th will be hosted by ABC. And, I want to, I've played it on a couple of podcasts before, but I'm going to play it at least one more time. I'm going to play Joe Biden doing the thing where he says pause because
You love this clip. You know you do.
I love the clip, first of all. But second of all, I'm going to play another clip after, and I want to contrast what they did with Joe Biden in terms of production, in terms of editing and possibly AI. I don't know, certainly editing. Because the person that challenges Donald Trump to the debate is not the real Joe Biden. Here's the real Joe Biden.
Imagine what we can do next. 4 more years. Pause.
Okay.
Every time I hear it, I just go, "Oh God."
All right. Now tell me what you think the difference is. Shaman, I'll ask you. I don't know if you've seen this clip. Tell me what you think the difference is. Here is another Joe Biden.
Donald Trump lost 2 debates to me in 2020. And since then, he hadn't shown up for debate. Now he's acting like he wants to debate me again. Well, make my day, pal. I'll even do it twice. So let's pick the dates, Donald. I hear you're free on Wednesdays.
Is that AI?
Yeah, well, it's certainly edited because they have the cuts. But
That looks strange, aside from the facelift, which always drives me crazy. But
Yeah.
is that they'll use the real visual to create that? That looks like AI to me.
Yeah, would you say that's representative of the real Joe Biden?
No, it
Oh,
reminds me of
yeah.
when he seems a little extra amped. I have so much respect for the presidency, but let's be honest, there's been something weird's been going on because he shows up to certain events and it's like he's been given an extra heavy shot of caffeine.
There's been a lot of talk about that. And of course, people make jokes that, Hunter Biden coked him up.
So bad.
It's so bad. I was listening to
No, the fact that we can actually say that about the office of the president is what's so bad.
Well, I was listening to a comedian, and his name skips my mind at the moment, but it was really funny. He does this whole routine about the FBI, and they find in Hunter's room in the White House, they find coke, and they don't know whose it is. It says right on the bag, Hunter's blow. Don't know whose it is.
So bad. Oh,
so
God.
yeah, funny guy that I was listening to. That's his material, but it's true when you think about it. You have the White House, which you could make the argument is probably one of the most, especially in the residence and the top secret sections of the White House, probably the most guarded, most watched house in the world. Okay. And cocaine shows up in the residence. How hard is it to figure out who had access to it? I mean, really, how many people are walking through there? Does he have neighbors coming in and saying, hey, I want to use the bathroom and go in there and take a piss?
Right. Can you imagine if we were having this conversation 20 years ago? People would be like, this is an invented show. This must be a
Yeah.
skit or something. Like, they would never believe we're actually having this conversation.
Yeah.
Although I'm pretty sure there's been lots of blow in the White House. The White
Yeah,
House.
there probably has. Yeah, who knows?
Over
But
the
anyway.
years, yeah.
Yeah, anyway, the debate. Quite frankly, if I was Donald Trump and if I was managing his campaign, I would be very leery of this. Okay, because he's way ahead in the polls. He has Joe Biden's got nothing to lose. Statistically, he's in real
Actually,
trouble
I think it's incredibly dangerous for Joe Biden because all he needs is
for Biden.
one. But I think it's dangerous for Biden. I think if Trump is on his most intelligent behavior, and he's been a little bit more like smart about the way he's handling
Yes, he
things right
has.
now. He really has. It's like he realizes I've got this. Let me not do what I did the 2 years into my first
Yeah.
presidency. But I think this is actually scary for Biden, especially, you know, whether they're up on drugs or not up on drugs. All it's going to take is 1 minute of him saying pause. And
Yeah. You know, here's the thing, though. Here's why I think it's more dangerous for Trump, because he's ahead. Joe Biden right now, and the statistics are that his negative numbers are lower than any president has had in like decades. It's been like 70 years. And the deficit,
they don't have a choice. I think that's why they did the debate.
the deficit is so bad that statistically, any sitting president with numbers this low has not won re-election. So just on that metric alone, he's almost, you know, he's a long shot at best. And then you factor in his age and other things, and they might as well swing for the fence. If you're the Joe Biden campaign, you might as well swing for the fence because you're on a path to lose anyway.
Yeah.
So I think that Trump has more to lose. I would hope that here again, if I was advising Trump, I would say be respectful, make some good comments. You know, don't address any negative issues that are going to impact you, but don't be interrupting. Don't be acting like an ass, because that is going to hurt you. That is just going to remind people of what they don't like about you. So, you know, be on your good behavior. Let Joe Biden be Joe Biden with that crooked little nasty smile that he has, that little grin, which is, I just hate that.
Creepy. Like, it really is. I think that's why it's the video. It's those moments like that. The smile doesn't seem real. It seems almost engineered. And the language reminds me of AI, because I've played with all forms of AI. Well, not all of them, but many of them. And there's just something about that whole thing that seems engineered.
Yeah, and from what I understand, they're going to sit down now. There's nothing wrong with sitting down. Okay, a lot of people, you know, talking about stamina and all that. I don't buy into that. I believe Obama and Romney, that they sat down, if I remember.
That's just so telling, though. The fact that they're going to sit down.
Yeah.
That's not about Trump.
Yeah, Romney and Obama were both able people. They didn't quote unquote need to sit down. So I it's a little different here because they might.
Are they afraid he's going to get lost going?
He
stands by the podium.
Yeah, he always does. And
he
actually,
does look. I mean, like, let's be honest. If Democrats, and I really am middle of the road. Like, I can't buy into either one too deeply because I have issues with both of them.
Sure.
But come on, have you even looked at him? He looks lost in the most basic settings he's been in a million times.
Even getting back to that pause clip, he totally didn't get it. Even when he said pause and the audience started chanting 4 more years, he's like, I must have said something good.
Yeah, that's horrific for a sitting president to be going through that.
Yeah.
You know,
so
really, I think the conclusion, everyone that is paying attention, that actually cares about the truth and will face the truth, can see that the Democrats have placed all their bets on his reelection, and they literally are using him as a placeholder just to keep that seat in the White House, and then they'll figure it out when they get there. And it's so much about them and about their control, and so little about what's actually good for the people. But I think they've justified that with, we'll tell them what to do. Awesome. Great.
Yeah. I would be for all the Trump supporters out there, be very leery of this debate. And the other reason would be I'm not going to get into a lot of it, but I still am not convinced that Joe Biden is going to be the candidate for the Democrats. Another topic, we'll touch on that again next week. RFK, I got to throw this out there because a lot of Robert Kennedy supporters are fans of this program.
Yeah.
And I would be remiss if we didn't just at least touch on the fact that he has not been invited so far anyway. He probably will not be in the debate coming up in June. Some of the later ones, if there's more, it depends. I believe he and his supporters kind of made the comment that these two guys colluded to keep them out. I don't, to quote President Trump, no collusion, no collusion. I don't think I don't think that's the case. The metric
I think the parties pushed. They want to get rid of him because he's a distraction
absolutely,
to them.
I don't disagree with that at all. I think what they're doing with the Secret Service is deplorable. They should give that man Secret Service protection. I mean, that's flat out bullshit.
Yeah, that's always bothered me.
It's bullshit, and that's straight on Biden. And let me tell you something. As far as I'm concerned, Biden has always been a goof. He has always been a goof. Maybe what I'll do next week is do a compilation of some of his greatest hits. I mean, he's been a goof his whole life. Okay.
Yeah, I really like Kennedy, and I think he would actually make a good president. He's just so radical to some people who haven't woken up to the situation that we actually are really in versus what, the powers that be would like us to believe.
Yeah. So the bottom line is I believe it's 15%. All the independent polling has got him down around 10. So he's just not making it in the polling to get into the debates. Now, that's not to say he won't down the road. And then he would have more of a legitimate claim to say that I should be there. But here again, this is the independent research that's going on, and he's just not quite making it. I do, here again, getting back to the Secret Service protection. I don't care what the polls say. At this point, he should have protection. And the fact that he isn't, that's on Joe Biden. And I got to tell you, that's bullshit. That's some straight up bullshit. Okay. Let me throw to you, Shaman, on the media. You brought to my attention this incident with the football kicker. Now, was this okay? He made some kind of a comment about women are kind of. Go, I'll let you explain.
He gave a commencement, Butker, I think is his name, which is kind of funny. I don't remember his first name, but everyone will know who I'm talking about. It's the Chiefs kicker, I want to say. And he gave a speech, and it was very, it's like, I felt like I'd been dragged back into the 80s. Like it was so like 1970s, 80s kind of speech that he gave, where he was basically saying, that the women had been lied to and that they basically wasted the 4 years they spent getting their college degrees because they were really meant to have husbands and children. And that's really their real role. And, I wish I'd even said his name, because I don't believe for a fucking second that speech was not purposely done. And, everybody, please wake up. Celebrities, brands, anybody who's pretty well known. We live in the attention economy. And if somebody is not going to be thrown in prison, or they're not going to pay some insanely high fee of millions and millions and millions of dollars, they are most likely doing it on purpose. So I don't believe for a second he didn't give that speech knowing full well that he was going to upset the people that aren't his people anyway.
Yeah.
Come on, folks, wake up. Stop buying into this stuff. All these creators like going off and they're so upset and so injured by it's like, you're part of the system now. You're literally helping pay his future bills. Wake up.
Yeah. Well, we kind of touched on that before we came on too, with a lot of, and here's the thing. I'm all about supporting people who have been wronged. I'm absolutely 100%. But there is a victim culture now that is for profit. You write books about how you've been victimized. You go on all these shows about how you've been victimized, and it feeds into a lot of stereotypes about people in general. And I feel it's starting to do a lot of harm. Although I think people are waking up to it now.
Yeah. You want to know something interesting? Back in the 80s, when Oprah Winfrey was becoming a massive big deal, my foster mother that I lived with in high school, she said to me she had a real problem with Oprah Winfrey coming forward with her use of drugs and and telling her big scandalous story. And then it was Drew Barrymore who did the same thing at the same time. And she said, I'm really concerned about this because what they're doing is popularizing being a victim and using it for success and fame, and which sounds so normal now, but this was the mid 80s. So
Yeah.
this was really, really, like, she was really forward thinking in that regard. And she said, I'm really concerned that this is going to create a trend in celebrity culture where they're going to trot out all their mistakes and tragedies and use them to keep getting attention for themselves. And I remember thinking, damn, she's smart. I was like, that's exactly
Yes.
what, and I could see it. I could see 30 years down the line. And that's
Yep.
exactly what's happened. It's like every time I hear a celebrity saying, oh my God, I had this happen to me 40 years ago or 20 years ago. And look, I'm all about healing, that. And I'm a trauma survivor myself. But when it's really self-serving, you can usually tell because there's a project coming out at the same time.
Yeah. This was if you remember a number of years back when Charlie Sheen had his meltdown and he left the show 2.5 Men in a walked off, and he's so mistreated. And he was, he was just taken advantage of. He's the one that makes the show and they don't give him enough respect, and
It wasn't the drugs.
Yeah. So he went on a tour. Okay. And he sold these tickets to come and listen to him talk. Well, this was a disaster. Okay. People were like, hey, this is bullshit. I want my money back. And his remark was that I remember was, I already got your money, dude, is what he said. And it to me was a perfect analogy of what we're like in America now. In that theater, in that wherever he was, in these giant auditoriums, he's on stage. The luckiest man in the room, the richest man in the room, probably. The amount of royalties and everything that he's getting from that program are enormous. He was born an actor's son.
He's a Nepo baby, big time.
Yeah, and just worth mountains of money. And the most privileged,
if he is, because I know he blew through most of it with drugs.
Well, yeah, okay.
It's amazing how much money
getting,
they can go through when they're using. It's crazy.
Sure. But my point is the luckiest, the most privileged, and the richest man in the room is selling tickets to tell everybody how badly he's been mistreated.
Oh yeah,
it's the victim.
The victim tour.
Yeah, that is America now. Okay,
it's been America for a while now, and the average person, especially people who are social media creators, have learned that from celebrity culture. Trotting out, and brands are as guilty of it now too. Oh, oopsie, we made a mistake, but my God, it created 2 rounds of extraordinary global press for our brand, and so many more people are familiar with us now.
Yep, I agree with that.
It's like we have no morals left, no sophistication, no, like, I'm not saying it doesn't exist at all, but really, it's like, everyone's willing to throw it out the window for that fame because we live in the attention economy.
Yes, absolutely. Interesting stuff, Shaman. We're listening to Shamanisis. She's my co-host on Thursday nights for these lives. You can find her on X at Shamanisis. Tell us a little bit more about where people can find you, Shaman, and what you're up to. How's the magazine launch and everything going?
Yeah, it's awesome. Soul Tech Magazine's in its 2nd issue. It's the Goddess issue, and it's gone up 1,000% in readership since its first issue. I'm really psyched about that, and people can find out about the magazine and the lifestyle brand Soul Tech at soultech.world. It's all about conscious living, change through the truth. And then, of course, they can find out about my books and courses at my personal website, shamanisis.com.
Absolutely. You can find the Billy Dees podcast, like I said earlier, just about anywhere podcasts are found. We are on virtually all of the major platforms, on all of them, so you can find them. X, the former Twitter, is kind of like my social media home, at Billy Dees there. And you can find me on most social media at Billy Dees, and check me out. Coming up after Labor Day, a couple of things. Got a real cool author and playwright that's going to be on the program. And we're also going to have an attorney from my area of Ohio who's going to be giving you some tips on about liabilities and things you should be looking for in your car insurance that could come back and bite you in the ass if you're not careful. So all that stuff is scheduled anyway, because I don't have it in the can yet, as we say in the business, but it is scheduled, and some more stuff too. So Shaman and I, after Memorial Day, we're kicking around doing some expanded programs and some other stuff. So you can follow us, either one of us. And speaking of following on social media, especially on X, there's a lot of times when people have comments, things like that, we can't address them while we're live because we're on numerous platforms and it's too hard to keep track of and run a show at the same time. So a lot of times afterwards, as long as the remarks and so forth, the posts are respectful, you don't have to agree with us. But there are times when we get hate. I get hate. I think I get a lot more hate than you do, Shaman.
I'm just too likable, Billy.
You're too likable.
And I have a sexy microphone voice.
Yes, you do. And I wish you would put that microphone in front of your mouth rather than speaking. So when you did your little thing, it sounded so much better.
Okay. Next time we do the show, I'll put my microphone in front of my face.
Now you don't have to have it like in front, but you want the mic. You want to be speaking into the microphone.
I know.
Not
It's the proximity. It's the proximity thing.
It's a proximity effect. You're exactly right. And that's what we like, Shaman. We like that. We like that proximity effect. Everybody wants to feel like you are whispering in their ear. You're talking right in their ear. It's going 1 inch into their ear. That's what they want.
Okay. Now you give me a visual. I'll reset my mic so I can have my sexy mic voice at full capacity.
Well, let's shoot for that next week. No, all right. Now there you go. You got to. For those listening, you got to tune in next week to see what she does with her voice. All right, fair enough. You've been listening to Shamanisis and Billy Dees Thursday nights live. Do check us out 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 5 p.m. Pacific. Thank you very much for listening to the program, and we will talk to you again next week.
Thank you for listening to the Billy Dees podcast. Follow Billy Dees on X @BillyDees for updates about the program.